During a fun segment on Jimmy's show, an old, forgotten letter suddenly changes everything. As Keanu Reeves and Julia Roberts read the words on that page, the studio falls silent and Jimmy is left completely frozen. What starts as a simple memory turns into a shocking revelation that connects all three of them in a way no one expected. I still remember the night the laughter died on Jimmy's stage. It began like any other late-night show in New York City, bright and harmless on the surface, with something quietly trembling underneath. Backstage, the studio buzzes like a beehive. Assistants sprint past with clipboards and coffee, cameras hum awake, and the warm-up comic is already testing jokes on a half-seated audience. Jimmy Fallon sits in his dressing room, jacket off, tie loosened, staring at his reflection. On paper, his life is perfect. Ratings strong, millions of fans, two huge guests tonight, Keanu Reeves and Julia Roberts. But his smile in the mirror looks tired, like it's working overtime. He rubs his face and mutters, "Okay, just be fun. Don't overthink it." Even though lately he feels like every show is a race to create the next empty viral clip. Outside his door, Keanu walks the hallway with the quiet stride of someone who's used to being watched yet never fully comfortable with it. A stagehand's headset cable gets tangled around a light stand and starts to fall. Keanu reacts before anyone else, lunging forward, grabbing the stand before it crashes into a nearby intern. The intern freezes, wide-eyed, then breaks into embarrassed laughter. "You okay?" Keanu asks softly. She nods, cheeks red. "Thanks, Mr. Reeves." He gives a small, humble smile. "Just Keanu, and maybe don't die on a Tuesday, yeah?" The crew laughs, tension easing, but he walks away carrying a heaviness that doesn't match the joke. Down the hall, Julia Roberts is in makeup, scrolling through pictures of her kids on her phone. Her stylist teases her hair, but Julia's attention keeps drifting back to one photo of her youngest holding a handmade sign. "Be kind, it's free." She smiles at it longer than she means to. The world still sees her as the unstoppable heroine from the movies, but the older she gets, the more she feels the distance between the roles she plays and the person she's trying to be. Stardom gave her everything: fame, money, red carpets. But it didn't prepare her for the quiet moments when she wonders if she's actually made anyone's life better off-screen. In the middle of all this controlled chaos, a security guard walks in holding a worn, tan envelope. It's thick, the paper slightly wrinkled like it survived rain and time. "Hey, this just came to the stage door. No return address," he says, handing it to a production assistant. On the front is written in neat, steady handwriting, "To the ones who still keep their promises." No names, no studio address, just that line and a smudged postmark from a small town outside Chicago. The assistant shrugs, tosses it on the props table, and keeps moving. There's always strange fan mail. Nobody notices that this envelope seems older than the ink on it. A few minutes later, Jimmy steps onto the main stage for rehearsal, cracking jokes with the crew. He spots the envelope sitting alone under the bright studio lights. "What's this?" he asks, picking it up. The paper feels strangely familiar, like the stationery from a hospital or school. On the back corner, he sees a faint sticker of a blue cartoon rocket ship peeling at the edge. Something tugs at a memory he can't place. "Fan mail, maybe," the director calls out. "Could be a fun segment. Mystery letter or something." Jimmy smiles on autopilot, another possible viral moment, but as his thumb traces the words "still keep their promises," a small knot forms in his chest. Backstage, Keanu and Julia are brought together for a quick pre-show chat. They greet each other warmly. They've crossed paths before, decades ago, when both were younger, shooting in the same city. "Do you remember that children's hospital in Chicago?" Julia asks suddenly, her eyes lighting up with a distant memory. "We visited between shoots. There was that kid who, what was his name?" Keanu pauses, his expression shifting. Liam, he says quietly, the boy with the rocket drawings. They both fall silent for a moment. They remember his laugh, the way he called Keanu the real superhero, for spending extra time with him, the way he told Julia, straight to her face, that her smile made the chemo room less scary. They also remember the promise. They would come back to see him again and read the script he was writing about a hero who could slow down time. When they walk onto the stage for a quick segment rundown, Jimmy waves the envelope in the air. "We got this weird letter," he says, trying to sound playful. "No name, no address. I thought maybe we could open it together on the show. Mystery mail with 2 legends. Can't lose." As he brings it closer, Julia's eyes freeze on the small blue rocket sticker in the corner. Her breath catches. Keanu steps closer, peering at the handwriting. His face drains of color. "Where did you get this?" He asks, his voice lower, more serious than Jimmy has ever heard it. Jimmy, still in host mode, shrugs, "Stage door like 20 minutes ago. Why, you recognize it." Julia reaches out, fingertips trembling, and turns the envelope slightly toward the stage light. In tiny letters, almost faded into the paper, is a scribbled line, "Rocket Kid Productions." Keanu's throat tightens. That was what Liam used to call every drawing he made. The postmark says last week, but Liam's last update years ago had ended with a nurse's message, not his. Jimmy watches their faces change, from casual to stunned, then to something close to fear. For the first time that night, he feels the show slipping out of his control. He clears his throat, trying to lighten the moment. "Hey, it's probably just a fan who liked the same stuff, right?" Keanu doesn't answer. Julia looks up, eyes wet but steady. The audience begins filing into the studio, music pulsing through the walls as the band rehearses. From the rafters, spotlights swing into position, casting sweeping arcs of white across the empty seats. The director's voice crackles over the speakers. "Places in 5, everyone. And Jimmy, that letter bit. Let's do it live. Reactions will be gold." Jimmy nods automatically, but his hand shakes slightly as he slips the envelope into his inside jacket pocket. It feels heavier than it should, like there's more than paper in there, like it carries a forgotten debt. As the countdown to showtime begins, they gather just off stage. The band plays the opening theme, the crowd roars, and the familiar comfort of performance tries to take over. Jimmy straightens his tie, forcing a smile. Keanu stands on his mark, unusually quiet, while Julia presses a hand to her heart, breathing slowly, centering herself. They all know the plan: comedy, stories, a few light surprises. But the envelope presses against Jimmy's chest with every breath, a quiet drum reminding him of the words on the front. "To the ones who still keep their promises." The stage manager lifts his hand. 3, 2, 1. The red light above the main camera blinks on. Jimmy steps into the spotlight, applause crashing around him like a wave. He makes it through the monologue, the jokes landing, the audience laughing, everything spinning like it always does. Then the band fades down, the cheers settle, and Keanu and Julia join him on the couch. Their easy banter fills the room, warm and funny, like old friends catching up. For a moment, Jimmy almost forgets the envelope, until his fingers unconsciously tap against it through his jacket. He reaches in, pulls it out, and holds it up for the camera. "So we got this strange letter right before the show," he says, aiming for casual. The crowd murmurs with curiosity. Jimmy turns to his guests. "Thought it'd be fun to open it together. You guys cool with that?" Keanu's gaze locks onto the envelope. Julia leans in, her entire body tense. As the camera zooms closer, the studio falls oddly quiet, like everyone senses a shift. When Jimmy begins to tear the top open, the sound of paper ripping seems too loud in the silence. Keanu suddenly puts a hand over Jimmy's, stopping him mid-motion. His eyes are darker now, full of something raw and unspoken. "Jimmy," he says, voice shaking just enough for the microphones to catch it, "if this is from who I think it's from, we can't treat it like a bit." Julia swallows, nodding, her eyes shining under the bright studio lights. Jimmy looks from Keanu's hand to Julia's face, then down at the envelope between his fingers. The rip already started, the promise inside waiting to be revealed, without any idea that opening it might change all three of their lives on live television. The air in the studio tightens as Keanu's hand stays on Jimmy's wrist. The audience, expecting a joke, settles into an uneasy silence. The band falls quiet. Camera red lights burn like watchful eyes. Jimmy, who's built a career on knowing exactly what to say next, suddenly has nothing. He looks at Keanu, then at Julia, and sees the same haunted recognition in both of them. This isn't a prop anymore. It's a message from a part of their lives they never fully faced. Keanu removes his hand slowly, almost apologetically. "If we open it," he says, "we do it for real, not for laughs." Julia nods and shifts closer, her voice soft but steady. "We owe whoever wrote that much." The crowd murmurs. Even at home, viewers can feel that something unscripted is happening. Jimmy's instinct screams to pivot back to safety, to a game, to a pre-planned story about movie stunts. But the envelope presses against his fingers like a pulse. Somewhere under the hot lights and pressure in his earpiece, another voice whispers, "You keep telling people to be kind. Prove it now." He exhales and carefully finishes tearing the top, sliding out a folded, yellowed sheet of paper. The edges are worn like it's been unfolded and refolded 100 times. There's also a smaller, whiter page behind it, newer, clipped to the first with a rusty paperclip. Jimmy offers the letter to Keanu. "I think you should read it," he says quietly. Keanu swallows, accepting the pages with the same seriousness he'd give a sacred object. He adjusts the microphone on his lapel, hands trembling just enough to be visible on camera. "Dear Keanu and Julia," he begins, his voice echoing through the silent studio. "You might not remember me, but I'm the boy from the Chicago hospital with the rocket drawings. You both promised you'd come back and read my superhero script when it was finished." His voice cracks slightly on promised. Immediately, the show dissolves into something else. A confession, a reckoning. Julia's hand flies to her mouth, eyes already filled with tears. The audience shifts, recognizing the weight of the word promised, in a way that has nothing to do with celebrity gossip. As Keanu reads, the memory pulls him backward in time. The hospital hallway, the smell of disinfectant and crayons. Liam, thin, bald from chemo, but with eyes so bright they made the fluorescent lights look dull. Liam pressing a crumpled drawing into his hand, a caped hero riding a rocket that said K+J forever. Liam's mother trying to smile while clutching a styrofoam coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Their rushed visit between shoots, the way the nurses beamed because the movie stars had taken time to come, and the way they'd both said, "We'll come back, buddy. That's a promise," before being whisked away by their teams. On the couches under the stage lights, those memories land like stones. Keanu keeps reading. "I waited a long time," the letter says. "I know you are busy saving the world in your movies and making people laugh. I really do understand. Sometimes my doctors didn't come when they said either because they were helping someone who needed them more. So I told my mom not to be mad at you. I said real heroes are probably just late." The audience lets out a soft, collective breath, equal parts tenderness and ache. On camera, Julia's tears spill over, but she doesn't wipe them away. She wants the boy who wrote this, wherever he is, to see that his words landed. Keanu pauses, eyes scanning ahead. The next line changes his posture completely, his shoulders tight and jaw clenching as he continues. "I'm writing this letter in case I don't get to see you again. If you're reading it, it means my mom finally found the courage to send it. That probably means," he stops, pushing the words out like they hurt. "That probably means I'm not here anymore." The crowd gasps, some people audibly sniffing, others covering their mouths. Julia reaches out and grips Jimmy's sleeve, grounding herself. She stares at the letter like she could will the words to change. Jimmy's smile has vanished. The usual sparkle in his eyes is replaced by something rower and much older. For the first time on his own show, with millions watching, he feels completely unprepared and strangely exposed. The control room's voice barks in his ear. "We should cut this, Jimmy, go to a break." But he just sits there, frozen, heartbeat hammering, as Keanu swallows hard and prepares to read the next line that none of them are ready for. "I'm giving you one last chance to keep your promise, but not to me." The sentence hangs in the air like a held breath. The studio feels smaller now, the bright set suddenly intimate, almost fragile. Keanu's fingers tighten around the page, knuckles pale. He glances at Julia, then at Jimmy, as if silently asking permission to go on. No one speaks, but their faces say the same thing: keep reading. The usual rhythm of late-night TV, joke, applause, cutaway, has disappeared. What's left is three people, and a boy's voice speaking from beyond a place none of them want to think about. "I know you probably feel bad if you're reading this," Keanu continues, eyes dim but steady. "Please don't. I don't want you to feel guilty. I got a lot of good days because of people like you. When you came, the nurses smiled more, and my mom smiled a little too. She didn't cry in the bathroom that night, or if she did, she didn't let me hear. That was a big deal for me." The honesty of the words slices through the room. Julia presses her hand over her heart, shoulders shaking with a quiet, private grief that the cameras can't entirely capture. The letter shifts, moving from memories to a request. "I watched your movies over and over," Keanu reads, "and at night I watched this show with Jimmy Fallon. When my bones hurt too much to sleep, he did silly games and made my mom laugh out loud. I think he never knew that he was helping us, but he did. So if you ever meet him, can you do me a favor? Can you tell him he's a hero too, even if he doesn't feel like one?" Jimmy's eyes widen, his mouth parting in shock. He wasn't expecting his name inside that envelope. His laughter has always felt like a product, something to be measured in ratings and clicks, not a lifeline for a boy in a hospital bed. For a brief second, a strange, small smile trembles onto Jimmy's face, tugged there by the idea that his late-night nonsense meant something real. But almost immediately, the smile crumbles under the weight of the next thought. This kid wrote to me, and I never knew. His chest tightens with an old, familiar doubt, questions about whether all this work, all this performance, actually matters. Hearing Liam call him a hero feels both beautiful and unearned. He shifts in his chair, wiping at the corner of his eye, not trying to hide the emotion anymore. Keanu turns to the second, newer page, carefully unfolding it. The paper is whiter, the ink darker, the handwriting shakier. "Okay, this part is my mission for you," he reads. "If I can't finish growing up, I want to leave something behind. I don't want my mom to only remember hospital rooms and beeping machines. I want her to see something good when she thinks of my name. So this is my request. Please find a kid like me and be there for him or her the way you couldn't be for me." His voice breaks again, and he takes a second to steady himself. The camera zooms slightly, capturing every line of strain on his face. The letter becomes strangely specific. "I had a plan," Liam wrote. "I told my big sister that if she ever got the chance, she should try to get tickets to this show. I said, maybe they'll read my letter on TV. That way the whole world will remember that I was here, and maybe someone will help another kid. If this is happening right now, it means my plan worked." A low rumble of emotion passes through the audience, somewhere between awe and sorrow. People glance at each other, at the stage, at their own hands, as if suddenly aware they're part of something much bigger than a taping. Keanu reads the final line on the page aloud, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "There should be a girl there with a rocket sticker on something she's holding. She's my sister. Please, if you can, listen to her. She knows what I wished for." Every head in the studio immediately turns toward the audience seating, eyes scanning rows as if they're hunting for a rare star. A camera swings away from the stage, panning across faces, surprised, curious, grieving, until it stops abruptly. In the third row, middle section, a young woman sits frozen, both hands gripping a small notebook against her chest. On the front of the notebook is a faded blue rocket sticker, nearly identical to the one on the envelope. Tears streak her cheeks, her lips trembling as if every word of the letter has been vibrating through her bones. She looks as if she half expected this moment and half believe it's real. The camera lingers on her, and millions watching at home see the recognition in her eyes. She knows Liam's handwriting better than anyone. The studio seems to hold its breath as a stagehand hurries over with a microphone. Security hesitates at the edge of the row, waiting for a nod from the director. Jimmy feels the earpiece crackle again. We can't just hand mics to random people. We need to clear this. But for the first time in his career, he pulls the earpiece out and drops it onto the couch cushion beside him. His decision is silent but absolute. On screen, the young woman slowly rises to her feet, clutching the rocket notebook like it's the last piece of her brother she has left. And as she lifts the microphone with shaking hands, her first words tremble out into the stunned silence. "My name is Emma, and Liam was my little brother." The sound of Emma's voice slices through the glossy polish of the show like a beam of raw, unedited truth. She stands in the aisle under the harsh studio lights, mascara streaked, shoulders squared in that particular way people carry themselves when they're holding pain and courage at the same time. Around her, audience members shift, some already wiping away their own tears. The cameras, hungry for spectacle, now feel like witnesses at a memorial they never meant to attend. Julia instinctively leans forward on the couch, reaching a hand out as if she could span the distance between stage and audience by sheer will. "Emma," she says softly, her voice carrying through the quiet studio without needing the band or sound effects. "We remember him. We remember Liam." The certainty in her tone surprises even her. It pulls up images she'd buried under years of premieres and interviews. Liam's shy, lopsided grin. The way he tried to hide his IV line under a superhero cape. How he'd whispered, "Will you still like me if I don't get better?" Emma swallows and nods, taking a shaky breath. He talked about you both for years," she says, forcing the words out even as her voice wobbles. "He knew all your movie lines by heart. He made the nurses watch the clip of Jimmy and the Roots playing songs with classroom instruments every night. He said if he ever got scared, he'd just remember that somewhere out there, people were laughing because you made them." Her eyes find Jimmy's, and for the first time he looks less like a talk show host and more like a man who's just realized his jokes have ripples he never imagined. Jimmy's throat tightens around an apology that feels too small for what he's hearing. I never knew," he manages, his usual fast patter slowed to something careful and honest. "We get so much mail and I didn't know." He hates how defensively it sounds like an excuse, so he stops, reshapes it. "I'm sorry, Emma. If he ever wrote to me and I didn't answer, I am so deeply sorry." The admission lands heavy but true. For once, he isn't thinking about being likable. He's thinking about being accountable. Emma clutches the notebook closer. "He did," she says, not cruelly, just stating a fact. "He drew you with a little guitar and sent it to the show. When nothing came back, he decided you must be saving your energy for the really sad kids. He never blamed you. He never blamed anyone." She lets out a small, broken laugh. "He used to tell me, people are doing the best they can with the time they get. I just wish I had more time to do my best too." Around the studio, you can feel something softening, a quiet dismantling of the casual cynicism that often fills rooms like this. Keanu shifts forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on Emma. "We told him we'd come back," he says, the guilt jagged in every syllable. We meant it, we really did, but then the movie moved locations and there were press tour and I let other things be more urgent. He doesn't bother dressing it up. He doesn't say schedules or conflicts. He says the truth. He chose other things and a boy paid the cost. I'm sorry, he adds, voice low, rough. I'm sorry we weren't there when he was waiting for us. Emma's eyes soften with something like forgiveness or at least understanding. He knew life was messy, she says. He got that from our mom. She used to say, we live in a broken world, but we still get to decide if we make it a little kinder or a little colder. That's why he wrote that letter. He knew you might never come back for him, but he hoped you'd come back for someone. She glances around at the audience, then at the cameras. He wanted this moment, not for drama, for change. Slowly, Emma opens the notebook she's been clutching. The pages are filled with sketches of rockets, capes, stick-figure heroes with big smiles and tiny, scarred bodies. Tucked into the back is a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges. She pulls it out carefully. This is the last page of his superhero script, she explains. He asked me to keep it until I could put it in the right hands. She looks at the stage, eyes lingering on all three of them. I think this is that moment. She begins to read, her voice gaining strength with each line. In my story, Liam wrote, the heroes don't always show up on time. Sometimes they're scared, sometimes they're busy, sometimes they forget. But the real test is what they do when they remember. Real heroes keep their promises even when the cameras are off, even when it costs them something. If you're reading this, it means you remembered. So now you get to decide what kind of hero you want to be. The words land on every person in the room like a quiet challenge, impossible to ignore. The control room is in chaos, directors waving, producers arguing, network representatives texting furiously. But on the stage, the noise has faded into background static. Jimmy stares at Emma, at the letter, at the sea of faces watching not as fans but as witnesses. For years, his job has been to steer the ship, to keep things moving, to never let the mood sit too long in discomfort. Tonight, he feels something different rising in him, a stubborn refusal to run away from the hard part. He looks at Keanu and Julia, then back at Emma. We were supposed to play a game after this, he says, almost to himself. We had props and everything, but honestly, I don't care about the game anymore. He reaches up and unclips his tie, tossing it casually aside like he's shedding the last bit of armor between him and the moment. We're not going to pretend this didn't happen. We're not cutting this out. We're going to finish Liam's mission tonight. The director's voice screams unheard from the monitor, but Jimmy doesn't look away from Emma. He leans forward, eyes bright with a different kind of energy now, not the frantic buzz of performance, but the clear, focused fire of someone who has finally decided what matters. Emma, he says, steady and resolute, tell us exactly what Liam wanted us to do, and I promise you, in front of everyone here, we're going to do it.